The text message seemed innocent enough. Family dinner at our house tonight. Important to discuss some things. 6 p.m. sharp. But something in my stomach tightened when I read it. Maybe it was the formal tone my father never usually used, or the way my mother had called 3 times yesterday asking about my spending habits. I'm Jennifer, and until 6 months ago, I was just another single mom trying to make ends meet while raising my beautiful 7-year-old son, Braden. Then my grandmother passed away, leaving me an inheritance that changed everything. $2.3 million to be exact. The money that was supposed to be a blessing now felt like a curse as I pulled into my parents' driveway. Braden was with his therapist. Thank God for that. The moment I walked through the front door, I knew something was wrong. The living room had been rearranged. 5 chairs formed a semicircle around the couch. My assigned seat, I assumed. My father, mother, brother Vincent, his wife Harmony, and my sister Chloe sat waiting for me like a panel of judges. Jennifer, please sit down, my father said, using his CEO voice, the one that always made me feel small. What's going on? I asked, though I already knew this was an intervention. We're worried about you, sweetie, my mother started, wringing her hands. About your choices. Vincent leaned forward, all corporate HR manager. You've been making some concerning financial decisions, Jen. The apartment purchase, all those therapy sessions for Braden. Excuse me? I cut in. Those therapy sessions are essential for my son. Of course they are, Harmony chimed in with her fake sweet voice. But maybe there are more economical options? My father cleared his throat. You've spent nearly $800,000 in 6 months, Jennifer. This is exactly why we worried about your grandmother leaving you that money directly. The room went silent. I felt my face grow hot, but not from shame, from anger, because that number was wrong, dead wrong. I'd spent exactly $320,000, $290,000 on a modest apartment and the rest on Braden's therapy and a reliable used car. I'd been meticulous with the accounting. That's not correct, I said quietly. I can show you my statements. We've seen the numbers, Vincent interrupted. The joint account shows. What joint account? Another silence fell. My mother suddenly found her shoes fascinating. Vincent's face twitched. The same tale he'd had since we were kids playing poker with jelly beans. The account grandmother set up, my father said smoothly, for family oversight. My grandmother would never have done that. She was many things, but she trusted my judgment completely. She told me so repeatedly before she died. We think it's best if we help manage the remaining funds, my father continued. For Braden's future, of course, we can set up a trust. I need to use the bathroom, I announced, standing up. My legs felt wooden as I walked down the familiar hallway. In the bathroom, I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and called Heidi, my grandmother's attorney and friend. Did my grandmother set up any joint accounts? I whispered. Absolutely not, Heidi replied firmly. She was explicit about you having sole control. Why? I'll call you tomorrow, I managed, hearing footsteps approach. A knock came at the door. Jen? It was Chloe. Are you okay? Fine, I called back, splashing water on my face. Just needed a minute. When I returned to the living room, I did something I hadn't done since I was a teenager. I played along. I nodded at their concerns, promised to think about their suggestions, accepted my mother's tight hug and my father's patronizing pat on the shoulder. But inside, something had crystallized. The number Vincent had mentioned, $800,000, wasn't a mistake. Someone had been accessing money I didn't know about using my name, and my family wasn't trying to help me. They were trying to cover their tracks. As I drove home that night, my phone buzzed with a text from Vincent. Glad you're being sensible about this. Let's meet at the bank next week to sort everything out. I didn't reply. Instead, I pulled into my apartment complex and sat in my car, watching the light in Braden's room where the babysitter was probably helping him get ready for bed. My son's routine was sacred. Bath at 7:30, story at 8, lights out at 8:30. No deviation, no surprises. My family had taught me about routines too, about appearances, about keeping things nice and proper and predictable. Well, I thought as I finally got out of my car, they were about to learn something from me for a change. Starting tomorrow, I was going to teach them about consequences. This is fraud, Heidi said, spreading the bank statements across her desk. Pure and simple. Someone forged your signature to create this account. I stared at the documents, my coffee growing cold beside me. The joint account had been opened 3 months after I received my inheritance. The signature looked like mine, but the slight tremor in the J was wrong. I'd never noticed it before, but now it was glaringly obvious. Look at the withdrawal patterns. Heidi pointed to a series of transactions. Large sums, always between $50,000 and $100,000, transferred to multiple accounts. They were smart about it, spreading it out to avoid triggering any red flags. How did I miss this? I whispered. Because you weren't looking for it, Heidi replied, her voice gentle but firm. And because they knew exactly when to strike, right after you were dealing with your grandmother's death and Braden's new therapy program. She was right. Those first few months had been a blur of paperwork, appointments, and moving into our new apartment. I'd been so focused on getting Braden settled that I'd barely checked my main account, let alone looked for others. I can recommend a lawyer, Heidi said, pulling out her phone. Someone who specializes in financial fraud and— No, I interrupted. I mean, yes, I want a lawyer. But I don't want to file charges, not yet. Heidi raised an eyebrow. Jennifer! They're my family, I said, though the word felt bitter in my mouth. I need to understand exactly what happened first and who was involved. 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from Cade Ramos in his downtown office. He looked younger than I expected, probably in his late 20s, but his eyes were sharp as he reviewed the documents. Your brother works in HR? He asked, tapping his pen against the desk. Yes. Why? Access to personnel files means access to signature samples, he explained. And HR people know how to make paperwork look legitimate. They're actually some of our most common perpetrators in financial fraud cases. My stomach lurched. Vincent had asked to see my job application forms just 2 months ago, claiming he was updating the family records. What do you suggest? I asked. Cade leaned back in his chair. Well, if you want to build a case without tipping them off, we need evidence of intent. The forged account proves fraud, but proving who did it. He paused. How often does your family meet? They're pushing for weekly now, claiming they're worried about me. Perfect. He pulled out a small device from his desk drawer. This is a high-definition camera about the size of a button, completely legal in single-party consent states like ours. If they're planning something bigger, they'll talk about it eventually. You want me to record them? I want you to let them think they're winning, he corrected. People reveal the most when they think they're in control. I thought about my father's commanding voice, Vincent's smug smile, Harmony's false concern. There's a family dinner this Friday. They want to discuss my financial future. Even better. Cade handed me the camera. Your parents' house. Does it have good sight lines? Places where conversations carry? I almost laughed. The living room connects to the kitchen through an archway. Mom's terrible habit of eavesdropping is why Dad installed those sliding doors in his study. Those doors still get left open? Always. Dad likes to supervise from his desk. Cade nodded, satisfaction crossing his face. We'll need multiple angles. I can show you how to set everything up. He paused, studying me. Are you sure you want to do this? Once you start down this road? They stole from me, I said quietly, used my son's needs against me, made me doubt myself, and they're still doing it. I met his gaze. I'm not just sure. I'm ready. He handed me a business card with his personal number. Call me tomorrow. We'll go over the technical details and establish a game plan. As I stood to leave, my phone buzzed. A text from Vincent. Dad wants to know if you thought about what we discussed. The longer you wait, the more concerned we are. I showed it to Cade, who smiled grimly. They're getting nervous. Good. Let them stew for a bit. Reply tomorrow. Tell them you've been thinking hard about their advice. Walking to my car, I felt lighter than I had in days. The shame and confusion from the intervention was gone, replaced by a cold, clear purpose. I had a plan now, evidence to gather, a story to uncover. My phone buzzed again, my regular reminder that Brady needed his medication. My son's face appeared on the screen, smiling from his new therapy center where he was finally making progress. Progress they wanted to stop, all for money they'd already stolen. I texted Vincent back, "You're right, family needs to stick together. Dinner on Friday sounds perfect." Then I called my regular babysitter and offered her double pay for Friday night. This time the family meeting would go very differently. The tiny camera felt like it was burning a hole in my blazer pocket as I rang my parents' doorbell. I'd spent the afternoon with Cade, strategically placing 3 more cameras around the house while my mother was at her book club. Now I just had to play my part. "Jennifer, sweetheart." My mother opened the door, pulling me into a hug that smelled of expensive perfume and anxiety. "We're so glad you're being reasonable about all this." The living room had been rearranged again, but this time with coffee and pastries laid out like a peace offering. Vincent and Harmony were already there, heads bent over some papers. My father sat in his usual armchair, reading, glasses perched on his nose, as he reviewed what looked like financial documents. "Before we start," I said, making my voice small and uncertain, "I want to apologize for how I reacted last time. You're right. I've been overwhelmed." The relief in the room was palpable. Vincent actually smiled, a genuine one this time. "That's all we wanted to hear, sis. We're here to help." "Speaking of help," Harmony chimed in, "I've been researching some alternative therapy programs for Braden, much more affordable options." I forced myself to nod, even as my hands clenched under the table. The camera, hidden in my button, had a perfect view of her face as she pulled out a brochure for a program I'd already investigated and rejected for being understaffed and underqualified. "Let's focus on the immediate issue," my father interrupted, sliding some papers across the coffee table. "We've prepared a proposal for restructuring the inheritance." I picked up the documents, pretending to study them while positioning myself so the camera could capture every word. The proposal was worse than I'd imagined. They wanted complete control over the remaining funds, with a small monthly allowance paid to me for essential expenses. "I don't understand some of these terms," I said, pointing to a paragraph. "What's this about Family Oversight Committee?" Vincent leaned forward eagerly. "It's simple. Any major financial decisions would need approval from at least 2 family members to protect you from impulse purchases, you know." "Like my apartment?" I asked innocently. "Exactly," Harmony exclaimed. "I mean, it's a nice place, but you could have gotten something much more sensible, maybe even invested the difference." "Like you did with your spa?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. The room went silent. Harmony's face flickered with something, fear, before she laughed nervously. "What do you mean?" "I just noticed your new business opened right around the time I got my inheritance," I said, keeping my tone casual. "Must have required quite an investment." "Harmony's business ventures are not the topic here," my father cut in sharply. We're discussing your financial security, Jennifer, your future, Braden's future. I watched the camera in the corner of the room blink its tiny red light, recording every word. You're right, Dad. I'm sorry. Please continue. For the next hour, I listened as they laid out their plans for my money they'd already started stealing. Vincent talked about smart investments while Harmony discussed family unity. My mother kept touching my hand, telling me how proud she was that I was finally listening to reason. When my father pulled out the papers for me to sign, I put on my best overwhelmed expression. Can I take these home to review? It's a lot to process. We really should handle this today, Vincent pressed. The sooner we set this up, let her take them, my mother interrupted, shooting Vincent a warning look. Jennifer needs to feel comfortable with this decision. I gathered my things, hugging each of them goodbye. As I reached the door, my father called out, "We'll expect your answer by Monday, Jennifer. No more delays." In my car, I took several deep breaths before pulling out my phone to text Cade. Done. Got everything. His reply came quickly. Come to the office. You're not going to believe where that money went. The next hour in Cade's office felt surreal as he played back the footage while cross-referencing financial records. The cameras had caught everything, including a whispered conversation between Vincent and Harmony in the kitchen about their investment returns. Look at these transfers, Cade said, pulling up a series of bank records. The money from your forged account went to multiple destinations. $300,000 to Vincent's private investment portfolio, $250,000 to Harmony's spa startup. The rest scattered across various accounts, all connected to your family members. I stared at the numbers, feeling sick. They really thought they'd get away with this. They still think they are, Cade corrected, a slight smile playing on his lips, which is exactly what we want, because now we have them on camera, practically confessing to their plans. He leaned back in his chair, ready for phase 2. I thought about Braden, about his therapy sessions they wanted to cut, about the trust they'd broken. Yes, I said firmly, it's time they learned what real family loyalty means. Your grandmother's house is on the market, Heidi announced during our morning meeting. The estate agent just listed it yesterday. I nearly dropped my coffee. The Victorian mansion on Maple Drive had been my childhood sanctuary, the only place I'd felt truly safe. My mother had always coveted it, dropping hints to my grandmother about keeping it in the family for years. How much? I asked. $1.2 million. It needs work, but the location alone. Heidi paused, studying my face. Jennifer, what are you thinking? I pulled out my phone, showing her the latest text from Vincent. Dad's getting impatient about those papers. Don't make this difficult. I'm thinking it's time to hit them where it really hurts, I said. Can you arrange a viewing? An hour later, I stood in my grandmother's foyer, memories washing over me, the grand staircase where I'd hide with books, the window seat where she'd taught me to knit, the sunny kitchen where she'd listened to my problems while baking cookies. The previous owner made some unique modifications, the real estate agent was saying, the elevator, for instance, and the wider doorways. Perfect for wheelchair accessibility, I murmured, thinking of Braden's occupational therapist mentioning how helpful such features would be as he grew older. I'll take it, I said. Full asking price, but I want to close quickly and quietly. Back at Cade's office, I laid out my plan. His eyes widened as I explained what I wanted to do with the house. That's brilliantly cruel, he said finally. Your mother's going to lose her mind. The renovation plans are already drawn up, I said, spreading the blueprints across his desk. Full accessibility features, sensory room for Braden, everything we need, and everything my mother always wanted but could never have. Speaking of your mother, Cade pulled up some new financial records. We found something interesting. That spa of Harmony's? Your mother's been laundering money through it, small amounts, but consistent. I felt my jaw clench. Show me. The evidence was clear. Regular appointments that never happened, services that didn't exist. My proper, perfect mother was helping cover their tracks. My phone buzzed. A video message from Braden's therapist showing him successfully completing a new social skills exercise. I played it twice, tears pricking my eyes. This was what they wanted to take away from him. There's something else? Cade said quietly, pulling out a small recorder. We found this in your grandmother's safety deposit box. Heidi remembered it being there. He pressed play, and my grandmother's voice filled the room. Jennifer, sweetheart, if you're hearing this, something's happened. I need you to know. Vincent came to me last year asking for money, significant money. I refused. He didn't take it well. Don't trust him with even a dime. Your father enables him, always has. The money I'm leaving you, it's yours, all yours. Don't let anyone tell you different. The recording ended. I sat in silence, processing this final gift from my grandmother. Validation that I wasn't crazy, that she'd seen through them too. We'll add this to the evidence, Cade said. But about the house, are you sure you want to go through with it? It's a lot of money in the renovations. I'm sure, I interrupted. But we need to move fast. I want everything ready before they realize what's happening. That afternoon, I met with contractors, interior designers, and accessibility specialists. The plans were ambitious, converting the formal dining room into a therapy space, installing smart home features for Braden's independence, creating a sensory garden in the backyard. As I walked through the empty rooms, I could almost hear my mother's voice from years ago. One day, this house will be mine. Your grandmother can't live forever. My phone buzzed again, another demanding text from Vincent about the papers. I ignored it instead, calling Heidi to start the purchase process. One more thing, I told her. Make sure all the paperwork goes through your office. I don't want anyone at the local firms knowing about this yet. That night, as I tucked Braden into bed, he asked about the pictures I'd been looking at on my laptop. Is that where we're going to live? He asked, pointing at the Victorian house. Would you like that, buddy? It has a big yard, and we're going to make it perfect for you. He nodded solemnly. Will Grandma and Grandpa visit? I kissed his forehead, thinking about the cameras, the evidence, the plans in motion. No, sweetheart, this house is just for us. As I closed his door, another text arrived, this time from my father. Family meeting tomorrow, non-negotiable. I smiled in the darkness. Perfect timing, I whispered to myself. Absolutely perfect. I arrived at Harmony's spa for the family meeting, wearing my most defeated expression. The cameras were already in place. Cade had helped me plant them during my consultation yesterday. Now I just had to sell my breakdown. I can't do this anymore, I announced as soon as everyone was seated in the spa's private lounge. You're right, I'm in over my head. The looks they exchanged were almost comical, relief mixed with poorly concealed triumph. Vincent actually reached over to pat my hand. It's okay, sis. We knew you'd come around eventually. I just, I let my voice crack. I need to know Braden will be taken care of. Of course he will be, Harmony exclaimed right on cue. In fact, I've already found a wonderful group therapy program, much more cost-effective. My mother nodded enthusiastically. And you could move into something smaller, that apartment of yours. About that, I wiped at fake tears. I've decided to sell it, start fresh. Excellent decision, my father said, pulling out the papers I'd conveniently forgotten last time. Now, let's get everything in order. I watched as they laid out their plan, each word caught on camera. Vincent explained how they'd protect my assets. Harmony detailed the reasonable monthly allowance they'd give me. My parents nodded along, occasionally adding how proud they were of my maturity. Not once did anyone mention the forged account or the missing money. I just need a few days, I said, holding the papers, to get everything in order, close some accounts. We can help with that, Vincent offered quickly, too quickly. No! I took a breath, softening my tone. No, I need to do this part myself. For my pride, you know. My mother reached over to hug me. Of course, sweetheart. Take the weekend. We'll handle everything on Monday. As they discussed celebration plans, my phone buzzed. A text from Cade. Got everything. Meet me ASAP. I should go. I stood up, clutching my purse. Braden's sitter can't stay late. They let me leave, probably eager to discuss their victory. In the parking lot, I heard the spa's back door open. Turning, I saw Chloe hurrying toward me. Jen, wait! She glanced over her shoulder nervously. Did you move the money yet? I studied my sister's face. Chloe had always been the quiet one, watching from the sidelines. Why? She bit her lip. Because they're planning something bigger. I overheard Vincent and Dad talking. Once you sign those papers? She shook her head. Just be careful, okay? I touched her arm gently. You knew about the joint account, didn't you? I found out last month. Vincent said it was temporary, just to protect you from yourself. She looked away. I knew it was wrong, but they're family, I finished. I understand. No, you don't, she whispered. They're not just stealing from you. They're... She stopped as the spa door opened again. I have to go. Just don't trust them. Any of them. I watched her hurry back inside, then drove straight to Cade's office. He was waiting with a grim expression and a laptop full of footage. Your sister's right, he said, playing a clip from earlier. Listen to this. The camera caught Vincent and my father in what they thought was a private moment. Once she signs, we liquidate everything, Vincent was saying. Offshore accounts are already set up. She'll never trace it. And Braden's trust fund? My father asked. What trust fund? Vincent laughed. By the time she figures it out, there won't be anything left to put in trust. Cade stopped the video. There's more. Your mother's been falsifying spa records for months. Harmony's business is basically a money laundering front. They're not just stealing your inheritance, they're committing serious financial fraud. I thought about Chloe's warning, about Braden's future, about my grandmother's recording. How soon can we move? Everything's ready, Cade said. But Jennifer, once we do this, there's no going back. Your family will never forgive you. I pulled out my phone, showing him a picture of Braden in his therapy session, beaming with pride at mastering a new skill. They stopped being my family the moment they decided to steal his future. Then let's finish this, Cade said, turning to his computer. I prepared everything for Monday. They want a show? Let's give them one they'll never forget. As I drove home, my phone lit up with a text from Vincent. Monday, 10 a.m. at the bank. Don't be late. I replied with a simple, I'll be there. Then called Heidi to confirm the house closing was scheduled for 9 a.m. The pieces were in place. In 3 days, my family would learn exactly what happened when you underestimated the quiet one. Monday morning dawned bright and clear. By 8:30 a.m., I'd already signed the papers for my grandmother's house. By 9:15, the remaining funds were secured in new accounts that only I could access. By 9:45, I walked into the bank where my family waited, looking appropriately nervous. You're late, my father said sharply. Traffic, I mumbled, clutching my folder of documents. Not the ones they expected me to sign, but they didn't know that yet. Vincent had already commandeered a conference room. Harmony sat beside him, tapping away at her phone, while my mother fussed with the coffee service. The bank manager hovered nearby, clearly impressed by my father's commanding presence. Before we start, I said quietly, I'd like to play something for you. I pulled out my phone and a small speaker. Jennifer, we don't have time for, Vincent began. I pressed play. His own voice filled the room. Once she signs, we liquidate everything. Offshore accounts are already set up. She'll never trace it. The color drained from Vincent's face. My father's coffee cup froze halfway to his mouth. That's not, Harmony started, but I played another clip, this time of her discussing money laundering through the spa with my mother. Turn that off, my father demanded. Why? Afraid the bank manager might hear something interesting? I raised my voice slightly, knowing the manager was just outside. Like how you forged my signature to create a joint account. You're making a scene, my mother hissed. No, I'm making a point. I opened my folder and spread out bank statements, transaction records, and screenshots. You stole from me, used my son's disability as an excuse to control me, tried to gaslight me into thinking I was irresponsible. Vincent stood up trying to gather the papers. This is ridiculous. You're having another breakdown. Sit down, I said coldly. I'm not finished. To my surprise, he sat. I've spent the last month gathering evidence, every conversation, every transaction, every lie. It's all documented. The authorities already have copies. I looked at each of them in turn, but I wanted to give you one chance to explain yourselves, to tell me why. The silence stretched. Finally, my father cleared his throat. We were protecting you by stealing $800,000. That money was meant for the family, Vincent burst out. Grandmother never should have left it all to you. You and your defective. My hand slammed the table before he could finish. Choose your next words very carefully. Harmony touched Vincent's arm. Maybe we should call our lawyer? Already taken care of, I said sweetly. The FBI received an anonymous tip about financial fraud and money laundering this morning. They're probably visiting your spa right now. As if on cue, Harmony's phone buzzed. The color drained from her face as she read the message. You can't prove anything, my father said, but his voice lacked conviction. I pulled out one final document, my grandmother's last recording, professionally transcribed. Actually, I can prove everything, but here's what's going to happen instead. I laid out my terms. They would resign from any positions of financial authority, repay every stolen penny, and never contact me or Braden again. And if we refuse? My father asked. Then at 10:30, every major news outlet receives proof of how a respected corporate HR director and his family systematically defrauded his disabled nephew's inheritance. I'm sure your colleagues would find that fascinating, Vincent. My mother started to cry. Jennifer, please, we're family. No, I cut her off. Family doesn't do this. Family doesn't steal from children. Family doesn't forge signatures or create fake accounts or try to destroy evidence of their crimes. I stood up, gathering my papers. You have 1 hour to decide. Oh, and one more thing. I smiled, thinking of the house keys in my purse. Grandmother's house just sold. I know how much you wanted it, Mom. Too bad you'll never see the inside of it again. As I reached the door, Vincent called out, You'll regret this. You need us. I turned back one last time. No, Vincent. I needed you years ago when Braden was diagnosed, when his father left, when I was struggling alone. But you were all too busy judging me, controlling me, stealing from me. I straightened my shoulders. I don't need you anymore. I never will again. The bank manager was definitely eavesdropping now, along with several customers. Perfect. 1 hour, I reminded them. After that, everything goes public. I walked out of the bank into the sunshine, ignoring my mother's calls behind me. My phone buzzed. A text from Cade. FBI just raided the spa. Harmony's books are being seized. Another message popped up, this one from Chloe. I heard what happened. You did the right thing. Call me sometime? I smiled, getting into my car. The day wasn't over yet, but phase one was complete. Now I just had to wait for the dominoes to fall. The explosion happened exactly as Kate predicted. By evening, local news stations were running the story. Prominent HR directors suspended amid fraud investigation. Social media caught fire as details leaked. My father's carefully curated reputation crumbled in real time. "Turn on Channel 7," Chloe said when she called. "They're interviewing Harmony's spa employees." I flipped on the TV just in time to see Harmony's assistant manager spilling everything. The fake appointments, the money laundering, the suspicious cash deposits. The reporter looked delighted. "How are you holding up?" I asked Chloe. "Better than them. Mom's locked herself in her room. Dad's lawyer keeps calling. And Vincent—" She paused. "Vincent tried to file a countersuit against you this morning for emotional manipulation or something." I couldn't help laughing. "How'd that go?" "The lawyer dropped him as a client after seeing your evidence. It's really over, isn't it?" "Almost," I said, watching Braden play with his toys across the room. "There's still the hearing tomorrow." The courthouse was packed the next morning, not just with lawyers and officials, but with reporters and curious onlookers. My family sat on one side, looking shell-shocked. Vincent's corporate polish had cracked. His tie was crooked, his hair unkempt. Harmony kept dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. My parents just looked old. The judge reviewed the evidence methodically: bank records, audio recordings, video footage, the forged signatures. My grandmother's final message. With each new piece, my family seemed to shrink further into their seats. "The court finds clear and convincing evidence of financial fraud," the judge announced. "The defendants will repay all misappropriated funds plus penalties. Furthermore," she continued, but I was watching my father's face as she granted me full power of attorney over Braden's educational and therapeutic care. The man who'd always demanded control now had none. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Vincent pushed through them, grabbing my arm. "You've destroyed everything," he snarled. "Our reputation, my career." "You did that yourself," I said calmly, loud enough for the cameras to catch, "the moment you decided to steal from your nephew." He raised his hand. Whether to point or strike, I'll never know. 3 reporters captured the moment security pulled him away, his face contorted with rage. Tomorrow's headlines wrote themselves. By evening, the dominoes were still falling. Vincent's company announced his termination. Harmony's spa was closed pending investigation. My father's country club membership was quietly revoked. Their social circle, once so important to them, turned its back completely. "The FBI wants to interview me again," Chloe told me over coffee the next day, "about Mom's involvement with the spa finances." "Are you going to do it?" She nodded. "I'm done protecting them, but—" She hesitated. "Mom called this morning. She wants to apologize, says she didn't know how far Vincent had taken things." "Did she mention the house?" "No, but I heard her crying about it to her friends. She always thought she'd end up living there." I stirred my coffee, thinking about the contractors already starting renovations. Some dreams aren't meant to come true. The next few weeks brought more fallout. My parents sold their house, a downsize they called it, but everyone knew they needed money for legal fees. Harmony filed for divorce, claiming Vincent had coerced her into the fraud. Vincent, facing criminal charges, tried to plea bargain by offering evidence against everyone else. The family that had once presented such a united front against me was now tearing itself apart. "Your grandmother would be proud," Heidi said when I stopped by her office to sign the final paperwork. "She always said you were stronger than they knew." "I just wish—" I paused, surprising myself with tears. "I wish it hadn't come to this." "They gave you no choice," she reminded me gently. "And Braden's future is secure now. That's what matters. She was right. The court had established a protected trust for Braden's care, funded by the repaid money. His therapy would continue, his future education guaranteed. Everything my family had tried to take from him was now legally his. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Please, Jennifer, we're still family. I thought about responding, but what was left to say? They'd shown me exactly what family meant to them. Now I was showing them what it meant to me. Instead, I texted Chloe, "Coming to the housewarming next week?" Her reply was immediate. "Wouldn't miss it. Braden's going to love his new sensory room." I smiled, putting my phone away. The revenge was complete, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like freedom, like finally being able to breathe. And somewhere I hoped my grandmother was watching, knowing her faith in me had not been misplaced. The moving truck pulled away from my grandmother's, no, my house, as the autumn sun painted the Victorian's facade in warm golden light. Braden ran up the wheelchair-accessible ramp, already comfortable in his new home. "Mom, come see my room again." I followed him up, passing the newly installed elevator, through wide doorways designed for future needs. The contractors had finished ahead of schedule, transforming the old house into something both beautiful and practical. "The sensory room is amazing," Chloe said, carrying in a box labeled kitchen. "Those light panels are exactly what Braden needed." "Wait until you see the therapy space," I replied, leading her through the house. The occupational therapist helped design it. The doorbell rang, Heidi and Kate arriving with housewarming gifts. As I opened the door, a familiar car drove slowly past the house. My mother's silver Mercedes, just like every day this week. "Still driving by?" Kate asked, handing me a bottle of wine. "She'll stop eventually." I hoped. The restraining order would make sure of it if she didn't. We gathered in the kitchen, the same kitchen where my grandmother had once listened to my troubles. Now it was filled with new friends who'd become family. Heidi arranged cookies on my grandmother's old serving plate while Cade helped Braden unpack his favorite dinosaur collection. "Mail came," Chloe said, bringing in a stack of envelopes, "including this." She handed me a thick envelope. Vincent's plea bargain details. He'd gotten 5 years, reduced from 12 for testifying against his co-conspirators. Harmony had gotten probation and community service. My parents had avoided jail time but were bankrupted by fines and restitution payments. "You don't have to read it now," Chloe said gently. "No, I want to." I opened the envelope, scanning the documents. They're required to attend financial ethics training. And look, Vincent has to write apology letters to everyone he defrauded. Will you read his? Eventually. I tucked the papers away. But not today. Today is about new beginnings. Braden came running in. "Mom, the lightroom is making the colors you promised." We all followed him to the sensory room, watching as LED panels shifted through soothing patterns. Braden sat in the middle, completely at peace. His therapist had been right. The predictable light sequences helped him regulate his emotions better than any medication. "Remember when they said this was too expensive?" Chloe murmured. "That group therapy would be good enough." I squeezed her hand. "Thank you for warning me, for choosing the right side." "I chose the only side." She watched Braden playing. "They were wrong about everything. About you, about him, about what family means." The doorbell rang again. This time it was the neighbors, bringing welcome baskets and curious smiles. I introduced myself and Braden, watching their faces for any sign of judgment. Instead, I saw only warmth as Braden showed them his dinosaurs. "The school called," I told Chloe later as we unpacked boxes in the study, my grandmother's old room. "They're excited about the sensory tools we donated. They're setting up a special education program." "Mom would hate that," Chloe said. Her grandson inspiring actual change in the community? Scandalous. We laughed, but it was true. My mother had always worried about appearances. Now her worst fear had come true. Everyone knew her family's secrets, but those secrets had led to something positive, something bigger than our drama. Found this, Chloe said, pulling out an old photo album. My grandmother smiled from the pages, arm around a younger me. She knew, didn't she, what they were capable of? She knew what I was capable of, I corrected. She just waited for me to figure it out myself. The day wound down. Heidi and Cade left with promises to visit soon. The neighbors invited Braden to meet their kids tomorrow. Chloe helped me make beds with fresh sheets, the house settling around us with familiar creaks and sighs. Finally, it was just Braden and me. We sat in the window seat, the same one where I'd once hidden with books, watching the sunset paint the sky. "Do you miss the old house?" I asked him. He thought about it seriously. "No, this one feels right, like it was waiting for us." "Yeah," I said, hugging him close. It was. Later, after Braden was asleep, I stood in my grandmother's, my study, looking out at the garden we'd redesign in spring. The Mercedes drove by one last time, slowing but not stopping. I didn't wave. Instead, I turned away and picked up my grandmother's old photo, placing it on my desk. "You were right," I whispered to her smile, "about everything." Then I switched off the light and walked through my house, my real home, checking locks and setting alarms. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new adventures, new chances to prove my grandmother right. But tonight, in this house that love rebuilt, we were already home.